Hello and welcome. This is Eric from AD Racing Central. Established in the 90s when video games were slowly becoming a mainstream thing, Wipeout is one of the most long-running video game franchises to see the light of day. As the series evolved over the years, Wipeout alongside Nintendo's F-Zero franchise sprung a whole anti-gravity racing subgenre. Wipeout has always represented something pure with minimalistic menu designs, little to no customization, and not a lot of content outside of the races in general. But in the prequel, Wipeout 2048, released for the PlayStation Vita in 2012 and later with an HD remake in 2017, the series was taken into a more modern direction that I think was the perfect balance between the established pure experience and an adaptation of modern game mechanics. In this video, I'll tell you why I think so. Let's get started. Even as the video game business evolved towards experience bars, online progression, personalization, and customization, Studio Liverpool kept the Wipeout games in its established direction. In 2008, when shooter fans were grinding for a new scope for their AK in Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Wipeout HD players could pick a race, pick a ship, and rely on the pure enjoyment of a solid racing experience. Studio Liverpool and Sony did however eventually follow suit and adapted the Wipeout franchise to the rest of the industry with the release of Wipeout 2048. This game is still one of the best console racing experiences out there, and it was also the perfect way to emphasize what made Wipeout so terrific and at the same time introducing new ideas. The footage in this video are all taken from Wipeout Omega Collection from 2017 for the PS4 and PS5. This game was released as a bundle of Wipeout HD, its expansion Fury, and Wipeout 2048. A shout out to legendary Wipeout content creator Hellfire is also appropriate since he made a terrific gameplay guide about more or less everything you need to know about this game. Link to the video is in the description. But let us now list a couple of reasons why I think Wipeout 2048 was a step in the right direction for the series. First of all, it's a prequel taking place in, you guessed it, 2048, and 2 years forward during the very first AD racing leagues. The pop cultural concept of prequels has historically been a little hit or miss, but in the case of Wipeout 2048, it's implemented in a good way, and it also allows for some artistic freedom for the game designers. The ships don't have to be an evolution of the ones established in Wipeout HD. Instead, the ships can represent early concepts of AD racing crafts, giving us designs that no players had seen before. The setting also allows for a logical reason to include prototype ships that all have a very specific gameplay mechanic, which I'll elaborate on shortly. Moreover, a prequel takes place in the beginning from a lore perspective, which in turn is something that lowers the bar for new players to try the game out without feeling overwhelmed or confused. Finally, the teams that are available to play are all the 5 classic teams: Physar, Oricom, AD Systems, Kyrex, and Piranha, which of course tickles the nostalgia nerve of returning players. For a new player, this might seem like a little too few ships to pilot, but this was solved in the best possible way, which brings us to the next point. That point is the different types of ships. You are essentially selecting your playstyle or ship preference when you select a team, which of course is a bit of a setback for aspiring fanboys and girls, but in Wipeout 2048, the developers came up with a great solution. All the available 5 teams have their general strengths and weaknesses. AD Systems has their focus on handling, Oricom develops the sturdiest ships on the tracks, Piranha the fastest, while Kyrex craft deals the most damage, and Physar are the all-rounders of the circuit. But what is also here for the first time is ship classes. All the teams have one ship from the 4 different classes that are Speed, Agility, Fighter, and Prototype. They all not only have their distinct stats and characteristics, there are other aspects too, like which type of weapons they can use from weapon pads, but I'll leave the details as they are explained thoroughly in Hellfire's guide video that you, once again, really should watch if you're remotely interested in this game. The bottom line is that you are now able to pick your favorite team, and they will probably have a ship that is well suited to whatever playstyle you may have and whatever race that lies ahead of you. Piranha's ships are still biased towards speed, AD Systems towards handling and so on, but for once you don't have to completely dismiss an entire team because of one ship's stats. This leads us to the next point, which is the aforementioned prototype ships. For a franchise known to never deviate from its streamlined gameplay experience, the prototype ships were a bold step in a new direction. Each team has one prototype ship each, and they all have some kind of gameplay mechanic that fundamentally differs them from any other craft in the game. Physar's version starts off slower than all the other ships, but gets a speed boost from flying over boost pads that lasts for the rest of the lap. AD Systems prototype has supreme handling and can do combat spins in normal races and double barrel rolls. Oricom's ship doesn't flinch at all from weapon attacks. Kyrex's prototype comes with an OP machine gun, and Piranha's is faster than any other ship in the game, but you can't steer it, you'll have to rely on air brakes. They are all very gimmicky and their effectiveness is very track dependent, but they are a very welcome breath of fresh air as they fundamentally change the way you play the game. Hunting for speed pads in the 5-star prototype is just as much fun as it was more than 10 years ago while playing this game on my PlayStation Vita.
Cannon. Mines.
And when you just thought I couldn't have any more things to say about the ships, we get to the next point on my list, which is the progression system, where you unlock them all. Unlocking ships is not exactly unheard of in the Wipeout franchise, but it has never been to the extent that it's the case in Wipeout 2048. You start off the campaign with access to only a single ship, but if you manage to reach level 50, there are 20 in total. With several different liveries for each team, everything adds up to quite an amount of variation. You level up by earning experience that you get from just competing in races, and you get an extra amount of experience by achieving either a pass or elite pass on any given event. Some ships are unlocked at specific levels, but others, like the prototypes for example, are unlocked by completing a specific event where you have to pilot that specific ship. Playing through the campaign grid in any Wipeout game is usually a great experience, but having unlockable ships adds that extra layer of progression, and the system is also something that the average mainstream player has come to expect from any racing game. The unlockable ships is not the only great thing about the progression in the game, since the campaign grid offers a huge amount of variation. The ever-present races are here of course, as well as the chaotic eliminator events. Some events also lock you into a specific ship or ship type and pits you against other ships of different types. This mechanic works well in introducing players to ships they might not have checked out otherwise, as well as adding even more variation to the campaign. The zone events, where your ship accelerates indefinitely, stand out as the more challenging ones, but even they are not as challenging as the A+ challenges. These are 10-lap endurance races in the fastest speed class in the game against ruthless opponents, and I'm still hunting the elite passes in these races. Completing them is not completely unachievable for casual players, but it does require a certain level of time and commitment and the will to run the same tracks multiple times. What a good thing then that the tracks in these games are terrifically designed, which is also the next point on my list of things that Wipeout 2048 did right. Starting off by looking at the surroundings, the developers have taken the super futuristic cityscapes of the previous games, tuned them down a bit and added some architecture and building design from the real world. The result is a setting that truly feels like a slightly futuristic version of reality and perfectly fitting setting for the first ever anti-gravity racing tournament. When it comes to the design of the tracks themselves, they leave little to be desired, and this aspect of the game was also taken in the right direction. The tracks are generally wider than before, and 2048 does lean a bit more into ship-to-ship combat than previous titles. This is of course something that not all veteran players prefer, but 2048 also features what the game calls skill cuts. Spread out over different parts of the tracks are alternate routes that are either hard to find or require a certain amount of skill to navigate. It can be a very narrow path with water on both sides, or an area only reachable using a turbo. The skill cuts were definitely the right way to take the Wipeout tracks to the next level. Several of the things I mentioned are things that I would like to see in a potential Wipeout sequel. What else would I want to see? Well, that's a topic for a future video. While waiting for that one, you may want to check out my video about the anti-gravity racing games you should play first, where I talk even more about Wipeout Omega Collection and Wipeout 2048. Watch it by clicking here. Feel free to leave a comment about what you think about Wipeout 2048. Thank you for watching. I am Eric from AD Racing Central, and I'll see you in the next video.